Thank you for listening to this week's episode with Niv, who is Niv.Witherwhisk on social media. This interview covers her experience being on season 7 of the Great Canadian Baking Show, her new business venture, and the support she has received from her family in her small town. We even cover how to make a box cake taste better and the classes she offers for youth and adults. Please leave a review on how you liked the episode, and don't forget to follow us both on social media. Also, if Niv's story inspires you, season 8 of the Great Canadian Baking Show is casting now until March 10th. All of these links are in my show's bio, and I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Welcome to season 2 of the Small Town Big Dreams podcast. Hi, I'm Becky Waples, and this is the podcast that celebrates small town creators and shares their stories. Each week, we dive into each creator's journey, from their background to where they found their courage, from their challenges to their wins, where they found their inspiration to how they took their first step. I cannot wait to chat, laugh, and inspire the next small town creator with each of my guests. If you are inspired by small town creators who turn their big dreams into reality, then this is the podcast for you. Please rate and subscribe to all upcoming episodes. Please follow on Instagram and Facebook, and always feel free to leave a message or comment to let me know what you'd like to hear or who you'd like to hear from. This little passion project is turning into quite the adventure, and I'm so glad you've come along for the ride. Thank you from the bottom of this small town creator's big heart. Let's grow together. I just wanted to say thank you for joining me today. Motherhood got in the way, and we were supposed to do this before Christmas, but hey, we're doing it on a snowstorm instead.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Niv. Before I became a mom, I was working in the nuclear industry.
Mm-hmm.
After I became a mom, I took a bit of a break, naturally through mat leave.
Yeah.
And then I just started baking a lot, kind of to deal with my postpartum depression that I was having. And I started a bit of an Instagram page to just document my journey on, how good of a baker am I becoming as I bake more and more.
Yeah.
And then it kind of took off from that to getting onto the Great Canadian Baking Show last year. So yeah, I live in Port Elgin. We've been here about 5 years now, and we love it here. Can't imagine living anywhere else.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's me.
That's very exciting. What were you doing? You were working at Bruce Power?
Yeah, before I started my mat leave while I was a contractor for Bruce Power.
And how old is your daughter?
My daughter is 2.5 now.
Oh, yeah. Cool. So baking for about 2.5 years.
Well, so I've baked my whole life. I started baking the moment I set foot in Canada when I was 7.
Okay.
Because it was my first time seeing an oven. So
really?
Yeah, there was at that time anyways. Baking wasn't a big thing in India, and ovens weren't a thing in India, at least not that I remember. And so when I first saw one here, I was like, oh, what's this weird contraption?
Yeah.
And there were so many baking and cooking shows that I would watch after school that's kind of what inspired me. But it was always just following recipes, right? And making simple things. It wasn't until mat leave, and I don't know if it was just creative juices flowing from having just created a whole being.
I love that, yeah.
But I was like, whoa, this could actually be an art medium of mine. And so I just started looking at my ingredients as my paint and paintbrushes equivalent. And so that's where it kind of unlocked for me that I could use this as an art form.
Very cool.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know if you have any formal training in baking, or is it mostly?
No. I'm completely self-taught. Actually, you wouldn't qualify for the show.
Okay.
If you did have formal training.
Right.
And it's funny because I for so long resented my parents for not letting me take the culinary arts.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, why'd they push me into engineering? I'm so annoyed. I didn't have a choice. And now, if I did pursue that, this would not be the path that I would be on at all. Yeah. I think it'd be much harder actually to get on a show at all.
Show.
Yeah, exactly, with formal training. So kind of blessed to have been able to discover it on my own. Yeah.
You were on the 6th season.
Seventh
and that's
season.
The one that just finished.
Yes. 7th season just aired.
What can you tell us about applying to the TV show? how did you even know that you could apply?
So my story is like it's a little funny. So season 5 aired.
Okay.
And like I watch almost every cooking and baking show possible, but I just like for some reason had stopped. And so season 5 had aired, and my sister and her boyfriend like barged into my house one day, and they're like, "You have to watch season 5. It's insane. There's this like one baker, and you know you would be very inspired by her." And so I watched.
Yeah.
And it was Amy from season 5 who did the bread oven.
Oh.
She basically made an oven out of bread. And after I watched that episode, I was kind of like sent on a tangent. And at that time, I was 3 months pregnant when I watched it. So then applications came around for season 6. And I was like, let's just check it out. Like, let's see what's required. I went online, and then I was like going through the application. It was such a lengthy application. Like it's almost an interview like style. You know, what are your hobbies? What do you do for fun? It's not just about baking. And then I was going through when the schedule, like when filming would be, and it was like you would need to be free. I think it was like May through July. And then I like looked down at my belly and I was like, I'm gonna be 9 months pregnant. So like let's not apply. And then I was kind of bummed because I didn't have an Instagram page. Like they were asking for those things, like send us pictures of your bakes.
Oh, okay.
So I almost like used that as an opportunity to make like a checklist of everything I would need for the next season, if there was a next season.
Right.
So I did that. And then I like started the Instagram page, started baking a lot more. At that point, I would have been like 3 months postpartum when I applied for season 6. And I heard back, like within 3 days of submitting my application, I heard back from a producer, and they just set up like an interview with you. And then it's a 10-minute interview. And if you get through the interview, you move on to the next phase, which is a virtual bake along.
Oh.
Yeah. So they give you, just like the show, they give you a challenge, and then they say like you have an hour and 45 minutes to virtually bake along with us. So I had to like set up my phone and my laptop so they could be in my kitchen and ask questions. And I think the whole point is to see if you can bake and talk and
like what's your personality,
comprehend at the same time. Yeah. And I thought I was really hard on myself. I was like, oh my God, I did terrible. Yeah. And then I didn't hear back. And then I got an email from the producers just like reiterating kind of how intense the process is of filming and prepping, the 6 weeks of prep work that's needed before you go on to film. And like me being like the overachieving person that I am, I was like, no, I can do it even though I'm breastfeeding. It's fine. I can be away from my kid for 6 weeks. Having done it now, like there is no way. It was so emotionally, mentally, and physically exhausting.
I believe it.
That having been postpartum and like never being away from your child at that point, it would have been so hard. So ultimately they said no for that season.
Okay.
And they said no, and they didn't tell me why. They just said there's a lot of reasons, like geography is one of them, age, like, you know, lots of different criteria that they have to fill for casting.
Yeah.
And then I was like kind of bummed, but like something inside me, I just kept hearing this, like something just kept saying like, not now. This is not a no. This is a not now. Keep working. So I spent another year like baking more, adding more to my portfolio, Instagram. And then I applied again for season 7, and it was like so seamless and smooth that I was almost confirmed from the producers, like one of the reasons that I wasn't picked was because they knew how hard it would be for me to leave my newborn.
Yeah.
So I was really grateful for them to say no at that time.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
But so it's 6 weeks.
So it's up to 6 weeks.
Wow.
So if you stay for the full duration, you can stay anywhere up to 6 weeks until the finale. But I think like minimum you're there for 2 weeks. So you're still away for 2 weeks.
Yeah. I watch a lot of cooking shows too, mostly cooking because I love food.
Yeah.
And when you watch like MasterChef, I always think that, are they doing one day in the morning, one day in the afternoon, one day in the morning, one day? But you're saying like, how many breaks did you have between filming?
So you have rest days between filming.
Oh, okay.
But you're basically like kind of filming one episode over 2 days sort of thing. And the thing is, so you're like baking while filming for like 8 hours
Yeah.
at least in a day. And then you're doing interviews and stuff. And then on your rest days, you think you're resting, but you're actually just practicing for the next episode.
Okay.
So there was one day where I made the koala cake that I made for my showstopper. I made that cake 3 times in the same day. And like that's like 12 hours of baking because it took me like you time yourself.
Was like a rest day or that was like a filming day?
That was my rest day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was my rest day.
I wanted to know, I think on the like when we watch the TV show, it feels like they're saying, here you go, this is the challenge.
Yeah.
But they do give you a heads up. Like,
yeah. So it's not like MasterChef where there's like a pantry and you run into the pantry and grab all your stuff, right? It's so the signature and the showstoppers are sort of given to you in advance because there's 6 weeks like before filming that you have to submit your recipes for because the culinary team has to like go and get those ingredients like Vegemite or salted yeast extract, whatever they called it on the show, was kind of hard to find here. So they needed time to find ingredients like that. But the technical, which is like a blind, not a blind bake.
Second one.
Yeah,
right?
like I call it the exam bake.
Yeah.
The second bake that we do in the tent is completely like when you see us lifting the cloth off the basket is exactly when we've done it. Like we haven't seen it before. That's the first time we're finding out. So that one is already prepped for us in advance, but we don't know what challenge it is. Yeah.
So if I want my listeners, if they haven't watched the show, to still kind of feel like they know what's going on. So explain it like we're 5.
Okay.
How the show works.
So the Great Canadian Baking Show is a show where 10 home bakers, amateur home bakers, are in a tent, a gorgeous, beautiful tent. And we have 3 challenges that we have to complete in an episode, which usually has a theme. So it's usually cake week or cookie week or bread week.
Yeah.
And then it gets, increasingly harder as the weeks go. So there's patisserie week, etc. And there's usually 3 challenges. The first challenge is a signature challenge. And that's usually done in a shorter amount of time. So you have anywhere between like an hour and 45 to like 2.5 hours. And that challenge is really supposed to showcase like who you are, what are your flavors, what's the story you want to tell through this bake. And that's what I tried to do every week. So for the first one, I was like, let me show Canada my love for curling because that's like relatable, I feel like.
Yes.
And then the second one is a technical bake. And that one really is more just to figure out how good are your fundamentals in baking? Like what do you know instinctively? And also through knowledge and experience. So a lot of times the recipes would just be like no temperature, no length of time, bake until golden brown. And so you have to like figure out what temp the oven needs to go on and you have to figure out how long it needs to be in there for. And a lot of that is just like I said, using your senses, smell, sight, feel. Okay. So that's really neat. And also my downfall.
It did look challenging.
Yeah, technicals were like, they were all my kryptonite. It was like bad.
I don't think I knew that they were just like baked till golden brown and you had to come up with that by yourself.
Yeah, sometimes it's just like make pastry cream and they give you like the quantity of ingredients but no steps on how to make pastry cream. And like as a home baker, you always have a cookbook or a recipe, right? Like at least I don't have anything that I've just like, maybe cookies I could do like cream, butter, sugar, whatever, add your dry ingredients. That's easy, but like not pastry cream.
I have no idea.
Yeah. And then the last one, the third bake, which usually takes, they give you a lot more time for it and a lot more, I want to say like creative freedom too, is the showstopper bake. And that's where you can go all out. It's a showstopper. So you can tell whatever story you want to tell. But it has to be over the top, incredible, like crazy concept. So that's kind of the structure of the show. And then you get judged on the technical, rated from 1 to 10, 10 being the lowest, 1 being the highest, and between the bakers. Blind, right? Yeah, and the judges don't know who's made what. But the signature and the showstopper, they take that into consideration when they're doing their final judging. Yeah.
And then each episode has all 3.
Yeah.
And then at the end of each episode, someone
goes home. Yeah, the worst part.
Now, I didn't look too closely, but I think everybody was from a different province too. Is there someone else from Ontario there?
Okay, so usually they try to pick like one person from every sort of province.
Yeah.
But because Ontario is so
Big,
dense, they get lots of applicants from Ontario every year.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's even harder for Ontarians, I don't know. Ontarians to get on the show. Yeah. This year, we had 4 Ontarians.
Okay.
So they had me, we had Candace from Brampton, Camilla from Toronto, and Andrew from Toronto. Okay. And it's so nice because now I get to hang out with all of them all the time.
That was one of my questions because I remember seeing the one girl was from the Maritimes.
Yeah. Heather, yeah.
Yeah, and one guy was from BC.
Yep. Yeah, Loic.
And Quebec. There was a guy from Quebec there too.
There was 2 actually. Okay. Andy and Renier are both from Laval. Well, not both, but they're both from Quebec. Yeah.
And then I've been following you on Instagram, and I see you traveling all the time to see your friends.
Yeah. So I went to Montreal just to visit Renier and Andy, and actually Lydiane from season 6 hosted us in her house.
Oh, cool.
She was such a fabulous host too. And the best part about having other baking friends is they have great recommendations for cafes and spots, and you know the food's gonna be it's gonna be really good.
Yeah. Before we started recording, you also mentioned that having a bunch of baking friends is also helpful because you don't have to Google the questions.
No, anytime I have to troubleshoot, or I'm sometimes in an emergency. I remember I did a wedding cake and I was freaking out. It was midnight, and I was like, I'm gonna call Renier because he's kind of the cake god, and I called him and he picked up, and then he helped me work through the wedding cake. And so I don't Google anything anymore. I just put it into our WhatsApp chat, and I'm like, hey guys, having this issue, what are your thoughts? And through their experience and knowledge, I usually get an answer immediately.
I love that.
Yeah.
And with Google, do you know the credibility about what the answers are? Do I know the credibility? I'm just okay, let's try it. But you know the credibility. You're hey, I'm getting credible answers from
the bakers that I've seen do really great things. Yeah, exactly. I think that whatever they've done is tried and tested. So I know that I'm going to get a sound response.
Yeah. I want to talk about the show.
Yeah.
So we talked about the audition process. And for the second time, did you have to do it all over again?
Yep, everything all over again.
Very cool.
I did the bake along all over again, and the first 2 minutes into my when they start the timer, I dropped an egg. I was well, whatever, gotta roll with it. You can't let things like that sort of derail the rest of your bake, right?
And great TV.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, no, the whole time before the show aired, I was like, oh my God, they're going to air that one time I cracked 24 eggs and couldn't separate them. That actually did happen. And then they didn't air any of it because they just want to make you look so good and wholesome and amazing at what you do. But you're so nervous about all the mistakes you made. And they'll show a few mistakes here and there because that makes you relatable too, right?
Yeah.
But no, they just did such a good job at editing us to make us look good.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you forget the cameras are there when the clock starts in the tent. Because you have a plan, you have things you need to get done every 5 minutes. You just you zone out. But then every now and then you'll hear the cameras will come over if you screw something up. And then because you're always mic'd up, so the smallest little gasp or anything, you're rushing over. What's going on? What happened? Why'd that fail? What are you gonna do to fix it? So that can get a little overwhelming because you're trying to you're now start over. And then also answer why you made it and how you're gonna fix it. Both of your sides of your brain are definitely working overtime in there. Yeah.
You said so for the showstopper and the signature, did you got all of those 6 weeks in advance?
Yeah. So we get those in advance. You have time to come up with the process, the concept. Sorry. You also have time to practice it in your home. That's the whole point of it. Is it feasible?
Yeah.
And is it gonna, ideally you're timing yourself to achieve the time in the tent. I didn't have that luxury in most cases until I actually got, I guess, set to film. But for example, my first signature and showstopper, I was in Australia when I found out I was going to be on the show.
Cool.
No, not cool. I mean, yes, cool, but like also they were like, "Okay, we need you to start baking next week," and I was 2 days into my vacation, and I was like, "No, I can't. I'm gonna be in New Zealand in a camper, like with no water or electricity or an oven." So then they were like, "Okay, we'll just put together the recipes, and then when you get home, you'll just be a little bit behind." But then I ended up renting a commercial kitchen in Adelaide and like foraging my baking equipment and doing my test bakes there.
Love it.
Yeah, so that was like, if I can do this here, then I can bake in the tent for sure, right? Like, it's a good stress test.
I was gonna say, I feel like the stress is a little different.
Yeah.
And people in your face every time you make a little mistake.
Yeah. So cool. That was neat. And then when I came back, I just like caught up for bread week and cookie week and etc.
Right. Yeah. What was your favorite challenge or moment on the show?
So my favorite challenge on the show was definitely from Cookie Week. I made, so we had an embroidery cookie challenge, and embroidery cookies are like, they kind of look like cookies that have like, I think it's like Eastern European stitching on it. It's very colorful. It's a white background usually. But I like took the word embroidery very literally, and I like pieced my 12 cookies together to make a giant big cookie that looks like a carpet, because I was like, embroidery, tapestry, carpet. That's just how my brain was working. And I created that concept like a day before filming in the hotel. A lot of times when you do your 6 weeks of prep work, you have ideas that you've come up with on your own. But then being around the other bakers and seeing what they're doing and ideas, you get so inspired that your ideas change while you're there. So that wasn't going to be my original plan, but it worked out so well. And I was so proud of myself for coming up with that. That was kind of my favorite moment on the show, because I was able to execute that idea that I just thought of like 8 hours before.
I love that. Yeah. I love that you said that too, that well, I think the show wants you to be inspired by the other bakers.
Yeah. And they actually told us that. The culinary team was like, it's not easy for them to get a recipe, 6 or like 8 hours before filming, and then have to like gather all the ingredients, new ingredients and stuff that you want. But they're like, it's very normal. It happens. You're all creatives. We get that. You're going to be inspired by each other and by the, but the technical, maybe there might be an ingredient you liked in the technical that you want to use for your next bake. And so they were like, just email us and we'll make it happen.
I love that.
Yeah, they were so nice about it.
They were super nice about it. Yeah, because they could have easily just been like, no, this is what you said you're getting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
this is what you get.
No, the culinary team, like, they're some of the most like patient, enlightened human beings I've ever met in my life.
They really have a great job. They get to be like, helping inspiring bakers every year.
Yeah, you can tell they really love their job.
Oh, nice. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we should ask also, what's the most stressful challenge?
The most stressful challenge was also from Cookie Week, ironically. It was oh my gosh, it was the Algerian cookies, kakna kash. That's like seared into my brain. I think like having come off of bread week and not doing great in that technical, I just started overthinking a lot, and then I saw math on the recipe, and it was like make a triangle or whatever, rectangle this big out of like dough that I didn't have, and I was just like, I can't, and my brain just kind of fried at that point, and my cookies ended up looking really ugly. I almost didn't actually put them in the oven because I was like so ashamed of them.
Yeah.
But then the producers were kind of like, they can't judge you if there's nothing there, but at least, they can still judge you on flavor.
Yeah.
So I threw them into the oven kind of the last minute, and I was able to get the judges to taste it, and they said, good effort, at least you got something out.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like my worst moment on the show, because I was like, I just could have done that better. Like, rethinking it. Kind of just like, there's this saying in nuclear, at least, it's like stop when unsure. So if you don't know what you're doing, you kind of like step back, read the procedures again, and then regroup. And it almost feels like you don't have the time to do that in the tent, but you do. Yeah. And I could have done that. I definitely could have stopped.
Yeah. It's a stressful experience.
Yeah.
And hindsight's always 20/20.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, I do feel like I try to teach my children that. I'm like, stop, put your hand on your heart, take a couple big breaths,
Yeah, that's what I needed. Exactly. I needed like some Miss Rachel.
Exactly. She's so relatable. Yeah. So. I wanted to ask, so what, you made it to the top 5?
I was number 7.
7.
Number 7 out of 10 is when I went home. Like I so one of my big, I think, lessons was not treating this like a sport, because it really is a sport. Like
train.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I wish I had done more physical training. Like, I don't know, like whisking more. Like because my shoulder, I have really bad tendonitis in my shoulder. It started to give out actually after that long in the competition, and that was like affecting my performance a bit, because things were just taking longer and you don't have time. So I just wish I had treated it more like a sport and like trained for it like a sport. And I think that would be like my biggest advice for people that are applying to any cooking or baking show. Like, it's fun and it's happy and it's like all of that, but it's also very much like you're there to perform and it is a sport.
Yeah.
You're competing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know about all the friendships and connections you made, because it really feels like you guys are a family now.
Yeah. So I don't think like there's any other time in my life where I would have made friends with 9 other people literally in every corner of Canada. Yeah. Like, when would that happen? Unless you, I don't know, you go on an excursion or something. And then, but also they all have like very similar hobbies as you, and they're all creative and they're all like, just, you know, their minds like inspire you so much to want to be better at your craft. So yeah, we became, it's all, we joke around and we say like we got trauma bonded from this experience. Because we're all in this like very weird bubble of like a very intense experience in a very short period of time. And like we would always talk about, well, like when we weren't filming, you know, what do we all have in common? You know that movie where like a bunch of people are in a hotel and they're like, what do we all have in common? It ends up being their birthday, and like, it's like a horror movie.
The I know which one exactly. Which one
and so we were like, what do we all have in common?
I love that.
It's not our birthdays, but it was like many of us had ADHD.
Same.
Like diagnosed for sure. So I was like, okay, it's definitely our ADHD.
So that's probably part of the creative.
Yes, it's definitely hyperfixating on baking.
Oh yeah.
And then, but it's also, I realize like all of us love the communities that we live in so much, and we've really integrated like our love for baking into our communities somehow. You know, Renier does a lot of like charity work for selling his bakes for causes that he cares about. Mm-hmm. Heather does the same thing. And like, I know, I don't know exact examples for everybody, but I do know that they're all really good people with like good hearts. And that's why we connected.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said hyper fixating on baking. Sorry,
it is hyper fixating.
But what you almost said, I almost brought it up earlier because you said something when you were starting baking. I did the same thing. So I would go to a restaurant and I would eat an antojito. And I would go home and I was like, I am going to make the best antojito. And I would make antojitos like every day for like 3 months. And my husband was like,
until you perfected it.
Cream cheese. And I was like, I don't even know anymore. But yeah, funny. And that probably is why you were on the show. You were probably good at being able to stop and talk to the film crew.
Yeah.
Get back to work.
Yeah. Yeah. To regroup for sure. Yeah. But yeah, I love like the 10 other bakers. I mean, we try to video call at least once a month, like between the Ontario bakers, the ODOT bakers, we call ourselves. We try to meet up at least once or twice a month. Like we went to a few of us went to Camilla's wedding in Colombia. And I think the other part was, at least from our season, we're each like, there's so much diversity. Like Renier's from Lebanon, Camilla's from Colombia, I'm Indian, like married to a Persian. Candace is from Tanzania, like and then like Heather has such a strong like German European background, and Loic's from Quebec but living in BC. Mm-hmm. Like there's just so much diversity and cultural diversity that we were like just really inspired by each other's backgrounds and flavors and stories.
You were gone for 2 weeks?
I was gone for 3 weeks almost. Yeah.
Super supportive. You must have crazy good support behind you.
Yeah. So he worked shift. Yeah. So that was extremely challenging. He was so worried about that. Like, I don't work right now because he works shift and because my daughter didn't have childcare at the time. And he was like, how is this going to work out? Like, I work nights and days. And then, so my mom and sister decided to come up here while I was gone to help him out, you know, in between. But also like the support that we got from the town. When I went on a tour of the Port Elgin Montessori School, not expecting anything out of that tour. And the owner, her and I kind of got chatting, and turns out like she lived in Mississauga and was friends with my daycare teacher when I was in daycare. Really? Like, what a small world. And then she knew about my baking classes that I teach for kids in Southampton. And then something in me was just like, okay, I think you just need to tell her your situation. Because like we weren't allowed to tell people obviously about the show. I had to sign like NDAs and stuff, and it was only on a need to know basis. And I was like, she needs to know.
Yeah. Well, childcare.
So I told her, and then she was like, don't even worry about it. Aria will be accepted as of May. You go do your thing. That's my daughter's favorite show. Like, we're gonna cheer you on. And so that's how Aria got into daycare, pretty much. Like a week before I left.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, and Ashkan was really supportive too. Like he actually built one of my stands for Bread Week.
Very cool.
We came back from Australia, and I like gave him this really crappy sketch. I was like, this is what I envision. It needs to look like a tree with monkeys and bananas on it. And he's like, okay. Yeah. And then he made a little stand, and yeah, it was hard on him. I know it was, and it was hard on my daughter too. For me being away for that long for so long. But also, like, I only have one life.
1,000%.
And, like, if, like, these are opportunities that don't come by often. So the mom guilt was, like, really real. But I was like, if I don't do this, then I'll resent them, which is even worse, I think.
In her whole life, 3 weeks?
Like, in the grand scheme of things. And now she can look back at it and be like, I can do crazy things one day, too. Yeah.
Like, and she can show her friends, like, my mom was on TV, watched the shows forever.
Yeah.
And, but I do think in the grand scheme of things, she's going to learn way more that you were gone for those 3 weeks than...
I agree. Yeah. My in-laws were super helpful as well. And like everybody really rallied around this, friends and family, and like the town included.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Are you ready to live kindly, confidently, and ridiculously happy? Me too. I'm Sophia Lemon, and I host Ridiculously Happy Peoplecast. Once a week, I sit down with an awesome person I want to learn from, and we talk about how in the heck to balance life. Throw on your sweats and prepare to laugh, cry, and even cringe as we talk about all the bullshit that comes along with living ridiculously happy. Subscribe to Ridiculously Happy Peoplecast, and that's PPL Cast, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you find your podcasts, and get your shit together with us.
So let's move on a little bit from the show, because you just mentioned it too, kind of that you do baking instructors for children. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. So during my mat leave, and once Aria was like a little bit old enough for me to step out of the house for a couple hours, I was like, I need to do something. Like, I can't not work.
Yeah.
And it's not even about the money. It's more just about being mentally engaged and meeting people and parents and stuff. And so I've always really liked working with kids, like doing STEM camps and art camps and things like that. And so I was just like, how can I do this in our town? So the Southampton Art Gallery was putting a call out for art instructors. And so I did an art camp to start, but then I was like, I'm not really feeling this. Like, art's great, but that's like, I'm not passionate about teaching them this. So I like pitched it to them. I was like, is there any way I could do baking, like creative baking? Because that's what I'm doing right now. And I would love to teach whatever I'm learning through this process to kids as well. And it's something that I would have loved to have when I was younger or a teenager. And they said, sure, let's give it a try. So this was 2 years ago. I did my first baking camp in the summer, and it sold out. And parents loved it, and the kids loved it, because they were like, oh, we get to, we don't have to store the arts and crafts forever. We just eat them right away. And it's like dinner or dessert after a day of camp. So that went really well. And then for the next year, so last summer, I did 4 weeks instead of 1 week.
Okay.
2 weeks of baking and 2 weeks of cooking camps, and also all sold out. And so there's clearly like a demand for it.
Yeah.
And I have the equipment for it. Like I have, and now I've been collecting, more and more. So each kid gets their own bowl and their own, like, I don't know, whisk or whatever, to build it into something a little bit more, like, I want the experience to be more individual. Like every kid has their own station sort of thing. So that's how it started, basically, was just giving it a shot. And like, what's the worst that could happen? They say no, or it goes really well.
And I saw it advertised you're doing one March break?
I'm going to be doing one this year in the summer, 1 week
okay.
this year in the summer. And then I have 4 individual dates. So over the summer. And I think those are targeted more towards the 11 to 15 age group, because I'm realizing there's not much programming in our town for that age at all.
Unless you're into like hockey.
Yeah. And it's more sports related. So, and I had a lot of parents, especially after I got on the show, be like, are you doing anything for teens like 13 and up? There's nothing in town. They would love to come. But I'm realizing like they don't really want to spend a week in camp. They only maybe just want to do like 1 day. To have like an experience. And so I'm going to be doing 3 dates of that, and then hopefully a few PA day classes too.
Cool.
Yeah.
I do remember as a child coming home like grade 7, grade 8 and being like, look what I learned today. And then my dad's the chef in our family, and he would be like, well, I think he just wanted a break. So he's like, okay, on Monday nights, Becky cooks. On Tuesday nights, Sarah cooks.
Love that.
And like, what a world of a difference. Like I will definitely do that when my children are at old enough age. But then you're right. Like, who's teaching them? I guess I'm teaching them. It would be kind of cool if they got to go to a course like that and come home and surprise us with what they learned. Because that's what I would do. I think I have specific memories of learning pizza omelets at school, and then telling my dad, going to the grocery store with my dad, buying all the ingredients to come home and make pizza omelets for like our Monday night dinner.
I think the distinction with my classes, and the reason I call it creative baking, is like they can learn the fundamentals of baking anywhere, like on YouTube or through parents or grandparents, whatever. I do teach them a bit of the fundamentals, like how to scoop flour and measure and things like that. That's important. But it's really about like also seeing food as an art form, and to be able to, because that's actually really big right now on Instagram and stuff, right? A lot of people are using ingredients to create art, like their plate is their canvas, and that's kind of how I want them to see what we're doing in camp too.
When I did Gather and Graze, the podcast for her, like I can make a charcuterie board. You can buy cheese and meat and put it on a board, but she was like, it's an art form for me. I put the colors the way I want them, and it's very visual for her. And I just don't have that.
You don't see it that way.
So that's why I buy it from her, because I'm like, my gosh, your boards look so much more beautiful than mine.
Amazing.
But that's true. Yeah. And especially in like a very visual, like social media world. So
we definitely are. And I'm a visual learner too. And I think a lot of kids are nowadays as well.
You have some new exciting news.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. 2024 has been off to a really, I want to say, productive start. This was never my intention when I started baking and creative baking. I've only ever wanted to teach kids how to bake.
Okay.
But after the show, I was getting so many requests for, can you make that, thing that you made for me on the show? And the answer is no, but I can make something very close to it, because technically CBC owns everything I made on the show now.
Okay.
So I've been getting requests for orders. And so that kind of prompted me to start a home bakery. And so as of last week, actually, I got cleared to run a home bakery out of my house through public health. And so I'm going to be accepting orders probably like very soon. I'll be doing like a post and everything about it. I have a few wedding cakes I'm doing this year. And so it's mostly, I'm going to be doing wedding cakes, special event cakes, dessert tables, basically like desserts that you're craving but you can't get in town anywhere. Because I know we have a few bakeries and things like that. But I would love like to do more French patisserie and entremets and things like that. So I'm going to be operating a home bakery as well now.
That's so exciting. And you said cakes, specialty cakes, dessert tables.
And wedding cakes and entremets. They're basically like mousse filled cakes with like jelly and cakes inside of the mousse.
Cool. I can't wait to try one.
Thanks.
That's very exciting though. I'm just like kind of blown away that 4 years ago you were working as an engineer and now you're opening your own home bakery.
Yep. Yeah. I actually in projects as an nuclear engineering graduate. I loved it. I think like sometimes in your life especially when you're at a crossroads and one path seems a little less like more effortless actually. And for me, it's always been this baking path or like the culinary path, let's just say. Things just seem so much more effortless. Like I don't doubt myself. I always figure out what the right thing to do is. And the opportunities come to me rather than me like stressing out and chasing them. And so for now, I never want to shut the door on anything because you never know, like financial situations change and life changes too. But for now, this is the path that I'm on and I'm happy here.
Yeah. Oh, I should have asked you this before. Do you do adult classes?
I did do one adult class last year. I did an adult class in Oshawa, partnering with a cafe. We did cookie decorating right before the holidays, and I am going to start venturing into the adult class space. I'm just trying to find a venue. I find with kids, like, they don't care about the venue. They don't care about the space. They don't care about the experience. They're just happy to be there and, get their hands into something. And then they don't care what it looks like at the end because it doesn't need to go on Instagram right into their bellies. So, like, they're just so much more easygoing. But with adults, you need to curate a whole experience for them, right? You need something that they can go off and talk about.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find a venue that would be perfect for that. And then also just like, what are adults interested in? I know a lot of people have asked about like cookie decorating. I know a few have asked about cake decorating. So yeah, that is on my, I want to say like long-term plan.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you say. I'm a part of like a really small book club and we're trying to do fun activities this time. So I was like, man, you could come like to my kitchen and teach us how to do.
Absolutely. So that's something that I also had thought about, like birthday parties and bridal showers and bachelorettes or whatever, but me going to their home. Yeah. So yeah, totally. And I can do like small groups for sure. The group that I did in Oshawa was, I think we had 12 in each. So that I would actually consider like a big group. Yeah, but anywhere from like 5 to 10 adults, I'm happy to.
So there's 6 of us. So I'll put that out to the group because that would be fun.
That sounds really cool, actually. Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Well then I'll book you in.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about living in the small town.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've experienced a lot of advantages to living in a small town, especially with daycare, support. Do you have any challenges by?
No, there's both, right? So I will say that I think one of the reasons that I was able to get on a show like this in Ontario, being such a dense population, was because I live in a small town.
Yeah.
And was because I live far away from Toronto.
Yeah.
I think they wanted, in a way, to show Ontarians all across Ontario that you can apply. You don't just have to be in Toronto, GTA, to apply. So I think that was definitely like a big advantage for me to be out in the outskirts of Bruce County, and then also to be in nuclear. I think that was a big like check mark for them too, like, because like women in STEM, like that whole thing. So that was a big advantage. So I think like on the one hand, living in a small town, you have so much more free time because there isn't as many distractions that you almost have to like make your own distractions. And make your own opportunities too. So that was a big plus sign. But the challenges really here are like not being close to my family. So if I want to scale up my business right now, like realistically, that's just not really possible for me with a baby and a husband that works shift.
Yeah.
So being away from my family is a big challenge. Like I could use their support and help.
Yeah.
They're more than happy to come up here, but with the weather and stuff, it's harder for them. And I think another challenge is like just not having access to as many resources as people in Toronto would have.
And like grocery stores.
Yes, a grocery store. So whenever I do go to the city, I like visit all like my Turkish store, my Asian bakery, so to gather all my ingredients, and then I come up here. But again, the other side of the coin of that is like whenever I'm craving something, and this is kind of how it started, was I was pregnant and I like really wanted eclairs. It was the middle of winter and offshore was closed.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm just going to have to make them. Yeah. So learning to be resourceful in that way and like making the things that I wanted to eat also made me a better baker and like prepare for the show, not knowing that that's what it was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I have cousins coming up from the city this weekend, and she's like, what are we going to do? And I was honestly like, there's like not really like, you're coming from the city.
But there's nature, which is a lot. Yeah. The beach.
Yeah, you gave me the idea to see if I can find like a cookie decorating kit. Yeah, because their kids are.
That sounds fun.
You're starting your own home bakery. Do you have any advice for someone who's starting their own business?
I'm just starting myself. I think the biggest thing that was helpful for me was like utilizing all our free resources that we have in town. So like contacting Business to Bruce was a really big source of help for me because I had no idea what to do, where to start. And honestly, like Googling things and reading through huge documents is just like not my thing. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to set up an appointment with the people, and it's free. So I set up an appointment, and I had a 15-minute chat with somebody there. I had to like type into my application what my vision was, what I want to do. And I wrote that down. I said creative baking classes and home bakery, blah, blah, blah. And then they came to me and they were like, here's the 3 things that you need to do immediately. And one of them was registering a business name, getting a public health inspector to come to your kitchen. And then the third thing was getting insurance. And so I was able to kind of like build a roadmap for myself through their help. So it's just like finding, I guess, institutions or places that have free assistance for things like that. There's lots of like places like that in small towns, I find. And then the other thing is like to just get started. Yeah, just like make a list and get through it. That's it. Yeah.
I love that you said that. Oh, yes. It's my son's 4th birthday today.
Okay.
And I was going to make cupcakes because I just have a confetti cake box in my closet or in my cupboard. How can I make a box cake taste better?
Yeah. So typically with box cakes, you add in 3 eggs,
oil,
water, and oil, right? And the way to make cakes more, I guess, enriched is to change the fat contents that are in it. So instead of vegetable oil, do the same thing, but with melted butter. So melt some butter, you'll get the same amount of vegetable oil that it's asking for. And like butter just has a more richer, moist, I don't know, like,
and he loves butter, which is really random, but he loves butter.
Yeah, that's great. And then the other thing you could do is change the water to milk.
Okay.
Milk adds, again, another, or buttermilk. Buttermilk's another really good one.
Okay.
A lot of cakes do have buttermilk in them. So you can change the water to milk. And then with the eggs, I leave the eggs as is. Like, I don't think you need to really replace the eggs with anything. Yeah. But you could add like any kind of flavor extract or component you want. Sometimes I'll add like the zest of lemon into like a golden cake, or the zest of an orange, or you can change the water to like the juice of an orange, for example.
I like that idea.
Yeah. Keeping the volume quantities the same, but replacing the liquids sometimes helps. For box cakes, you never have to measure out your own sugar. So that's like, you can't really replace the sugar, but adding spices as well helps. Yeah.
I was thinking adding bananas because he loves bananas, making a banana cake.
Yeah. You can actually add bananas instead of eggs if you ever wanted an eggless cake. Yeah.
Maybe we have lots of vegan that needs to be eaten, but I could do that next time.
And then I guess like if you're ever using the store-bought frosting too.
I am, yeah.
You are? Okay. So a good tip to make that better, and actually I find with store-bought frosting, it's too loose. Like it doesn't pipe very well, is adding 2 tablespoons of butter.
Okay.
And re-whipping it for every can of like store-bought frosting.
Okay.
That'll give it, the butter will give it more body, because it like butter tends to kind of be more solid at room temperature than that frosting would be. So yeah, adding butter Literally add butter to anything and make it better. Like, that's my advice.
I know. I feel like I always hear that, like, oh, butter. And I'm like, yeah, I barely even use margarine. So I'm like, I don't know. But my youngest, I can't even remember how I learned. I must have been just making him like toast or something. He was like, more butter, more. And I was like, oh, so now we constantly have butter in the butter for him.
Right.
But I feel like I'm going to hyperfixate on cakes for a bit because you said that juice instead of water or milk.
Yeah, that's a good hack. And there's like so many different types of, like, there's orange juice. I've made a really good like blood orange cake. The juice of blood orange is just different and it adds a really nice color.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That would be like, my dad used to always talk about when he was growing up, you could get like raspberry bit cake. Like like the one I'm using is a confetti bit cake. And he's like, I've never had it, never since my 10th birthday. And as soon as he said you could use juice instead of water, I was like, I could make him a raspberry cake. Yeah. And something.
If you can get freeze-dried raspberries too, you can add that into the dry ingredients, and basically it won't add any more moisture, so it would just add more flavor.
It. He listens. He's my biggest fan, so he'll be listening. He'll try it too, probably.
I love that.
I think that's all my questions. Is there something I didn't ask that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think you got pretty much everything.
Okay. I always like to finish off my interviews with like fun questions.
Cool.
And my very first one was going to be, would you rather separate 100 eggs or 10 eggs for 10 minutes? And I feel like you said, you've already mentioned both, so you're...
Yeah. Okay, so wait. Is it beating 10 eggs for 10 minutes with my hand or with a mixer?
Well, I think I was going to say your hand, but now I know you have a bad shoulder.
So I would say I would separate... What is it, 100 eggs you said? Or what?
100 eggs.
I would separate 100 cold eggs because that makes a difference. Okay. If your eggs are at room temperature, the yolks will break. I learned that the hard way in the tent.
True.
But cold eggs are easier to separate. So I would separate 100 of those any day before I hand whisk anything ever again.
You rather have unlimited appetizers or unlimited desserts?
Unlimited appetizers because I can make my own desserts, right? Like, yeah, but they're small and dainty, and you can eat 100 of them easily.
Yeah. I want to know because we've talked a lot about desserts, but you must be a good chef, like cooking.
Yeah.
What's your favorite? Yeah, what's your favorite appetizer to make or meal to make? Or
so, I would say like my favorite cuisine actually to make is probably Persian cuisine. Okay. I've had to learn how to make a lot of Persian cuisine because my husband we don't have access to our in-laws. But Persian food is just so, in my opinion, easy to make compared to Indian food, because with Indian food you need so many spices. True. Your entire kitchen ends up like stained, and I love it, but it's just easier for me to get my mom to make it or buy it. But Persian food, you kind of like throw everything into a pot and it stews and stews and stews for hours, and it comes out so delicious at the end that I love making Persian food.
Okay. Would you rather never eat a cake again or never eat a cookie again?
I could do without a cookie ever again in my life. But like cakes are just, the thing with cakes is there's always a celebratory moment with cakes. And so it's about the memory and less about the cake. And so with cookies, you're just like, you eat a cookie at any time and you kind of feel guilty about it after. But with cakes, you're like, oh, at least I had fun at this event with all these people and ate a slice. So it's more about the experience.
True. I like that. Dark chocolate or milk chocolate?
Oh, dark chocolate for me. Oh. Yeah. To snack on, yeah. To cook with, no, it's still dark chocolate. Yeah.
Don't they say like not to cook with milk chocolate?
Yeah.
They always say don't cook with milk chocolate. I'm like, what are they talking about? And then I'm like, oh.
Semi-sweet.
I
would say is more dark, to be honest. Yeah.
Cheesecake or lava cake?
Oh my God, my husband's going to kill me for this one. So the reason I say that is because we were wedding cake testing for when we were getting married. And one of the options was cheesecake, and we were getting 3 tiers. And she's like, you can pick, 3, like a different one for each tier. And he's like, okay, I want cheesecake. I was like, ew, who gets cheesecake for their wedding cake?
I've never heard of that either.
And literally, as I'm saying that, there's a couple at the checkout being like, we'll take the cheesecake.
I was going to say, I would pick the cheesecake, but you don't hear about it.
We did not get cheesecake.
Oh.
I overruled that one. But now I have to make him a cheesecake every year for anniversary.
There you go.
So I'm like, you get a lifetime of cheesecakes. But I pick lava cake.
Brownies or lemon bars?
Brownies, anything chocolate. Like, I'm not a big fan of tart desserts, only because I find with the tart desserts you have to add so much more sugar to offset the tartness.
yeah.
Like, lemon bars they have a lot of sugar in them.
I would pick lemon bars.
Yeah. Me too.
I guess I just love sugar.
Yeah. No, that's fine. The tart desserts, I think, like, just have a different flavor profile. You can't have like milk with tart desserts, but you can have milk with a brownie.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
But yeah, when people say like sweet or savory, I always pick savory. And so that's funny when you said tart desserts. I'm like, well, I would always pick a tart dessert.
Yeah.
So that's just my flavor profile. Yeah. A 3-tier wedding cake or 100 wedding cupcakes?
Definitely 3-tier wedding cake. Yeah. I've done 75 cake pops.
Oh,
for my friends' weddings. I did a wedding cake for my friend and cake pops for my friend, and like the cake pops nearly killed me because it's anything that requires individual attention takes way more time. The wedding cake was stressful too, but it's like it's one thing that it's each is one component, and you spend less time on it.
And do you use fondant when you make a wedding cake?
No, I actually hate fondant a lot.
It doesn't even taste.
People peel it off. And honestly, if I could do even without buttercream for most of my desserts, I would, because I've seen people just like eat around the buttercream unless it tastes really good. Yeah.
I would like
which is why I really like entremets, because mousse, even though you can't ice things with mousse, like everybody will eat the mousse fillings and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like, fondant's pretty. You can obviously make like really crazy designs.
Yeah.
But I always think like that's a beautiful cake. It's tastes normal.
Yeah.
Like I want something that tastes incredible.
Yeah.
Donuts or churros?
Churros.
And I guess I've put on here a fruity dessert or a chocolatey dessert.
Chocolate any day. Yeah. I'm such a sucker for chocolate.
I would
You'd pick fruity. Yeah.
But that's okay. Awesome. I don't think I have any other questions.
That's okay.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was really fun. It got me reflecting on things that are really important to me.
Yeah, good. So I always like to ask, okay, I know, how do we find you?
Oh, so if you want to find me, I'm pretty active on my Instagram. It's at Niv. and then with her whisk. And yeah, you can either DM me on Instagram or email me, which at the same niv.witherwhisk@gmail.com. If there's any like classes or cake orders, or I don't know, even like advice on desserts, consulting, dessert consulting, happy to answer.
And this will probably air till February, but by February you'll probably have your home bake.
Yeah. I'll be doing an announcement on, like, technically I am clear to operate right now, which is middle of January. I got the thumbs up, got the report and everything. But I think, February is going to be a great time. I'll probably be doing a pop-up Valentine's Day menu, because I don't really want to, have repeat orders of things. I want to do pop-up menus. So like boxes, I'll have, 25 boxes for sale, and you can fill out a Google form to order a box. That's probably the structure I'm going to use. It's going to be called brownie boxes for Bay. Okay. So I'm going to be doing brownie, like different styles of brownies. I was
like, for Georgia Bay? For Bay?
No, Bay. Like,
you
can, it could be for yourself, because I love buying treats for myself sometimes. I am Bay.
All right. Well, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Niv.
No worries. Thanks.